Hey everyone, thanks for rejoining. We're just having some Twitter, predictable Twitter issues. But Amanda will be with us very shortly while we wait for people to rejoin.
All right, I have invited via protocol Arjun from LiFi to join in, and I think we're just waiting for the folks from Swing to come in as well. Okay, Swing protocol adding Viveik as a speaker. Arjun, I see you've requested. Thank you. Yep, should be in. Okay. All right, everyone. Do you want to just try testing your mics?
Hey, check 1, 2. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, and welcome to everyone. Yeah, once again to our Ape with Aggregators campaign week 2. This is a panel I think we're really excited for. Again, some incredible guests with LiFi, Swing, and Via Protocol with us today. Thank you all for joining. And sorry again for the technical difficulties on the first one, which was a little bit too bad because we had so many people join in. So hopefully they'll come trickling back. But to get started, let's have a general introduction of our guest speakers today and the aggregators that they represent. So let's start with Via.
Yeah, hello. My name is Serafim. I'm founder and CEO of Via, and we're building Via for 1.5 year, and aggregating as well as bridges directly and aggregators such as LiFi, Socket, dBridge, Symbiotic, Rango, and others.
Love it. Great. Thank you for that. And then can we have Arjun next from LiFi?
Hey, I'm Arjun. I do research and marketing at LiFi. We're one of the bridge index aggregators in the space, and we've been live for almost 2 years now. And I've been with the team since roughly the same amount of time. Currently, we have 13 bridges integrated in our stack, 30 plus dexes and dex aggregators, and we support 15 plus EVM chains. So really happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Lovely. Thank you for that intro. And then can we have Vivek from Swing?
Yeah, hey guys, thanks so much for having me here today across protocol. My name is Vivek. I'm the founder and CEO at Swing. We are a cross-chain liquidity and bridge aggregator, similar to LiFi and others as well. We currently have our focus is more primarily on looking at interesting use cases in the cross-chain space. I think token transfers and bridging is something that a lot of teams do. I think there's a lot of other myriad of use cases that are possible with cross-chain, especially with EVM ecosystems, non-EVM ecosystems, which Swing has a big focus on as well. We're a team from Silicon Valley, ex-Silicon Valley, and convinced a bunch of my friends and a lot of people out here to join the team. And so happy to speak today here.
Yeah, once again, I want to thank all of our guests for coming and thank you for your introduction. Hope everyone in the audience can get to know these aggregators a little bit better and what they have in store for us for the future. Because yeah, it looks like the future is going aggregation. So I think that for the first question, I wanted to ask all of our guests, and just feel free to jump um, in no particular order. Just wanted to ask, like in comparison to Dex aggregators, I have been asking the other teams that have been joining us over the past week and a half on this campaign, but in terms of community and brand building, what does that look like? And I ask this, like, what do you think it would be versus a 1inch and Matcha, who are always recommending other brands? Like, how do you build your own brand when you're constantly recommending others versus a UniSwap?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. I think it is a little different. I think bridge aggregation, we're talking about aggregation across multiple chains versus DEX aggregators that are aggregating dexes on a single chain. And so it does fragment the community building a little bit, because instead of being focused on a single, most of these blockchains operate like tribes, right? We see users that are very loyal to certain protocols on a specific chain, for example. But with multi-chain, cross-chain ecosystem growth, that's clearly changing. And so when it comes to a community branding perspective, I think, for us at Swing, especially our bridge partners, and we have a pretty good chunk of bridges that we partner with as well. But I think kind of highlighting some of their kind of strengths and kind of working with them, maybe potentially on certain use cases or weaknesses that we can help improve. That's kind of been really working well for us at Swing. But yeah, I'd love to hear what how the others think about this as well.
I think I definitely resonate with the tribe logic, but in terms of use case as well, there's like now a tribe that's a bridging tribe, right? Like the whole bridge or narrative. So in terms of that, I think One Inch and Matcha, they've definitely helped us in many ways, because they've helped us tell the story of aggregation even before we started. So yeah, definitely. In many ways, they've made our work easier in terms of building a community, because you don't have to start with the basics of like first principles. What is aggregation in crypto? And then you can pretty much just build a community around the service that you provide, which is bridge aggregation.
Okay, so kind of piggybacking a little bit as well off of, yeah, the aggregators that led the space and other aspects of, DeFi and Web3, but also I guess like the strength of the brands that you recommend, I guess also in line with what you were both were saying, also help to build the brand. Any other kind of points that you wanted to add from VIA protocol in terms of like community and overall brand building for aggregation, and what's the difference with protocol level brand building?
No, actually, I'm totally agree with Arjun and Vivek, and I don't know what can I add here.
Okay, no problem. So the next one is question number 2 would be, with abstraction getting more and more popular, I think the popular opinion these days is that aggregation and any sort of cross-chain bridge movement will be in the background for the end user when they're, and when they're utilizing any sort of DApp. But I wanted to ask the aggregators themselves, do you see a world where it's actually still over the hood and not under the hood? So end users, even in the future, will still be interacting with aggregators as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that aggregation will be certainly something that moves into the background. I think I don't necessarily think that, especially I think as more and more compelling protocols and use cases come up, I don't think necessarily people will be looking to go straight to an aggregator to maybe do a swap. They just want to be interacting with their favorite protocol, and they have token A on blockchain A, and they want to swap into token B on blockchain B. I think eventually this is just going to happen like magic. We kind of think of this like like a single bridge interface or a single token interface. It's more just about helping the user get to their end goal, regardless if that's a cross-chain swap or a token transfer or a cross-chain yield aggregation or lending use case. Really, to the user, they shouldn't have to be worrying about having to specifically set, which aggregator do I want to use, which DEX do I want to tap liquidity from. I think all of that would be kind of abstracted away and kind of made seamless for most end users.
Okay, so quite in line with the popular opinion. Anyone else think that there could be a world where it is still kind of the way we see it today, but maybe just with a bit of a different look UX wise?
Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah, so I believe that right now in DeFi, the main use case still is like speculations, and because using bridges right now, you cannot speculate and trade, find arbitrage opportunities. I believe that all bridges and bridge aggregators would be in background, but maybe sometimes in the future, someone would offer any investment opportunities in bridges, such as DLN right now trying to do with the bridge trying to do with DLN, and they might be might work with the end users, but all other use cases would be in background.
Yeah, I think in terms of abstraction, of course, aggregators kind of act as a tool of convenience, right, for other developers who are essentially looking to offer bridging capabilities to their users. But I think because bridging as a concept in general is still relatively new, the front end side is also very relevant, right? So I definitely see a future where aggregators kind of help other applications scale their cross-chain experiences. But at least in the next year or so, like bridge aggregation front ends like Jumper can potentially, act like the hub for anything bridging pretty much. But like later when the abstraction narrative or like the whole plan with abstraction comes to fruition, I think something like a Jumper would need to evolve into much more than just simple bridge and swap.
Okay, right. So yeah, I guess still for the most part though, the popular opinion remains true, at least in this panel, that yeah, it will be abstracted away from the end user, and we'll see just a bit more composability introduced, which is yeah, really exciting. So the next question I wanted to ask was, when we think, like again, looking towards the future, do we think canonical bridges in terms of being a place where end users are making their cross-chain transactions, do we think that those are always going to be an option? Are they getting replaced anytime soon? The other part of this question was, I believe it was in one of the LiFi newsletters where it was showing how aggregators have like historically taken over and really disrupted the markets, like such as Netflix and hotel aggregators such as Trivago, for example. So how much market share do aggregators have now? If you guys have any sort of estimates, just so we can share with our audience. And then when do we think aggregators will capture the majority of market share if they haven't already? A lot of questions in one, sorry.
Yeah, I think in terms of like the question related to aggregators, I think we're all aware that the reality of aggregators in crypto right now, like they do not dominate market share, right? So I think overall, the market share for aggregators would probably be in low double digits across niches. But like my reasoning behind this would be like my reasoning behind a low market share would probably be because of how early we are in crypto in general. Like I find myself as well when I try a new application and it just works every time. Users are sticky, right? So I also stick to the same application because it just works, and I tend to trust it and like not go out looking for other options. But I think as the industry matures and the standards across the industry improve, there will potentially be a switch in trends where aggregators could dominate. And in the article that you're referring to, we looked into the same thing with internet as well, right? Where earlier all of these internet websites, they seemed dominant forever, but like eventually aggregation won. And I think there's good reason to believe that we can see something similar in crypto as well.
Yeah, and I also, I mean, to add to Arjun's point as well, I think it is like a symbiotic relationship as well. I mean, the aggregators kind of exist without the bridges. The bridges technically can exist without the aggregators, but the aggregators actually drive more traffic to the bridges. And so, having kind of very close partnerships with the bridge teams I think is a win-win across the entire industry. When you think about market share, I mean, even if you look at teams like Netflix, like the examples that LiFi mentioned with Netflix and even Trivago and some of these other aggregators, Netflix in their traditional model, they end up forking out massive commercial agreements and paying out to even be able to show some of these movies that bring spotlights to production houses that they support. I think with the nature of crypto being permissionless, it's usually we can integrate with any bridge that we choose, but every team, every aggregator does their due diligence to make sure that we're picking responsible bridges that have proper audits and security assumptions that are not increased unnecessarily. And so I think when it comes to market share, yeah, echoing what Arjun said as well, it's certainly in the double digits here, but it will, I think we'll cease to see how things kind of grow, because there's also certain interesting things like what Layer Zero is doing with their OFT tokens, where they're kind of coming up with kind of standards to not need potentially aggregators in certain scenarios, right? In their kind of model, you can use liquidity on one chain and have that available across different chains, utilizing the layer zero bridge as the intermediary. Things like that, I think, are going to make things interesting, and I think it also creates opportunities for aggregators to look at those type of use cases and see how we can even improve the experience for our existing user base as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely time will tell how things kind of grow. But it's certainly not like I don't think it necessarily needs to be a David versus Goliath situation. I think it's certainly something where we can work together.
I think here that this space looks like the DEX space. So we still have UniSwap with the majority of trading volume and a lot of aggregators. And if you wanna like swap big amount of money, you will go to the 1inch. But in other cases, you will go directly to the UniSwap, because there would be lower gas fees, or maybe you will go directly to Curve. And I guess here would be the same situation, where most of the guys would go to the multi-chain or like a cross. But if you need some more like exotic transaction, you will go to the bridge aggregators. Yep.
Yeah, we were thinking about that too in terms of when more bridges introduce composability, I guess similar to our composable bridging feature that we're looking to add, and connects a chain abstraction. Then that'll be a little bit tougher maybe for aggregators to include at first. But yeah, hopefully they can find a solution to that. So I think that's what you were talking about when you were talking about more complicated or exotic transactions. But the next thing, so thank you all for your responses about that. That was really interesting. And yeah, curious to see like when and if aggregators are capturing the majority of the market, because I think that would sort of fulfill the thesis, Arjun's thesis from the LiFi newsletter, or the LiFi team's newsletter thesis. That was really interesting. So when the next question was about bridges taking a fee. So what bridges, of course, have to take a fee. Relayers take a fee to fill transaction or transfer requests. But so what type of fees do you think that aggregators could include in the future? And that's like the main topic of this panel is sort of what an aggregator business model would look like.
Yeah, for sure. I could take that one to start. So I think a key kind of value add for why someone would use a bridge aggregator is to get access to the top bridges, the best liquidity, the best routes, right? And so the way we think about this at Swing, the intention is because there's already bridge fees and gas fees involved with going cross chain, and sometimes they're not small, they do add up. And so with the way we think about it at Swing is that any transaction that goes to the Swing bridge aggregator liquidity sourcing algorithms, we don't charge any fees unless the user wants to charge a fee on top of the volume that they move through our integration. And so today, if the Swing products are actually free to use, you can use our API SDK widget and install it and move volume through it for free. But if customers want to add a fee, let's say 0.5%, then we'll take a small fee of the fee that they add on as a way to monetize the integration. And so I think the key idea for us is helping to move volume and move volume and work closely with our bridge partners to increase volume to a cross bridge, for example. And so our intent is not to tack on an unnecessary fees on top of the bridges, the fees that the users are already paying, because if it becomes too expensive, why would the user want to use a bridge aggregator if they can just go straight to the bridge and save funds, or especially if they know which token pairs they're looking to swap. Now, there are some of these long tail tokens like we spoke about where it's not obvious, how do I go from token A to token B on two different blockchains? Which dexes have enough liquidity to perform the swap? This is where a bridge aggregator adds value, obviously, in these type of scenarios. And so, again, I think the way that we're approaching fees may be different from some of the other players, but our products are free to use. If you want to monetize the integration and add a fee yourself, then we'll take a small fee. And so it's kind of a win-win situation, the way that we've looked at it.
Yeah, on the B2B side, I think we also use a similar model where it's a revenue split with all of our integration partners. And I think a revenue split there kind of makes sense, right? Because you're doing all of the hard work for these integration partners, which is integrating multiple sources of liquidity, maintaining them throughout, maintaining all the features, all the updates. So you're offering convenience to them, and like they can, if they are charging a fees on top of it, then it would make sense to split the revenue. But I think on the B2C side is where like the discussion becomes more interesting, because I would say it doesn't make too much sense to like add a fees for bridge aggregation like on a front end like Jumper, because that's essentially the bread and butter, right? It's like someone would go on Jumper for this exact service. So it's like it's the basic that they would expect. And at LiFi, we're thinking along in terms of adding a fees for additional value add features, right? Like recently, we added bridge insurance, so it's something on top of the overall experience where we're offering more security and an improved user experience for everyone. So there's a case for users paying a fees on top of like a bridge fee. But in general, on a protocol level, I don't think it makes sense to just slap a fee because no one's making revenue.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with Arjun because we built a B2C product and it's difficult to charge here fees. That's why we right now developing V3, where we would offer to our end users cross-chain apps. It would be looks like the same as DeFi's app like 2 years ago. And yeah, we would offer apps to most of the applications and charge fee there, and maybe some kind of performance fee because we would offer vaults as well.
So then if in the case where it's tough to add a fee, like I think Arjun mentioned adding bridge insurance or another sort of product where we can see revenue models like for Via or Swing, are there any sort of plans for something similar, like a secondary product?
Yeah, I think providing bridge premiums on transactions is interesting. We did speak with the insurance team actually, I think about a year and a half ago about something like this as well. But I think those kind of products also make sense more for B2C type of product. At Swing, we're primarily focused on B2B, and that's primarily due to regulatory reasons and a host of other things happening in the space. But yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. It still could be useful to some of our B2B customers, but it's not something that's been asked for us yet.
Yeah, I think we're seeing interest for like these value add features on both like B2B and B2C levels, because it's just like you're improving the user experience after with every new feature, right? So there's interest in paying a fees for it as well, because you're offering them something new.
Okay, then for the next question, maybe we can start with Via. I think this is supposed to be our last question, but it just makes sense here. So when token, and why do you think that aggregators would need a token? Are there, like, quite seriously, are there any plans for that? And what would be the tokenomics behind something like that?
Actually, we don't yet sure about talking here because yeah, it's aggregator, and we don't need liquidity, and I think it isn't the right product for token. But we develop in V3 where we would have our own vaults and our own liquidity, and I guess we can think about token when we would release our next product.
Yeah, I think in terms of when token, I would probably say I have no comments, right? Because the beauty of the question anyway lies in the mystery, right? So I would prefer keeping it that way. And in terms of token models, like this is where the dilemma comes in, right? We're still trying to figure out fees for aggregators. So it's very early to talk about token models. And I don't particularly like see a clear fit for existing aggregators as well that already have a token or even for like some of the bridges where the use case for the token is pretty simple, right? They're just offering incentives or rewards to the users. So I think if there is a token, there needs to be a clear way to capture value, and that way is not obvious right now. So probably if something happens with aggregators and tokens, then it's not the right moment right now. Maybe in the future.
Yeah, I think to echo Arjun, same thing. No comment on token launch or anything like that at Swing. I think when it comes to thinking about tokens and fusing this with existing aggregator activity and volume, I think the tokenomics utility has to be really thought out carefully. And so it's not something that at Swing that's a priority right now for us. And so I think like Arjun said, I think it's the beauty is in the mystery of how these things are going to develop.
Okay, well, everyone does love a good mystery, so thank you all for. I don't want to say vague is a bad word, but like very mysterious answers. And yeah, very interested to see if any of the aggregators that join this week, when or if they have come up with some tokenomics. It'd be really something cool to do a deep dive on. So the last question for today's panel was, again, as an aggregator and having to take engineering resources to integrate new bridges, add new routes, support new tokens. What is your stance on being neutral in terms of I'm talking about like bias and kind of picking favorites in the space? It's something that is probably it should be more of a challenge for aggregators. So in terms of those three, of adding tokens, bridges, and routes, do you take a stance on being neutral? Do you ask your audience to kind of do their own research, or are you helping them with the education process of these three aspects of your business? And do you think that either stance, which is like more of not picking favorites, but do you know what I mean, providing some special education on routes that you think would be more popular, or just asking the audience to, again, DYOR, could either or affect your bottom line?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. Honestly, I think the answer is pretty simple, especially for us as a B2B team. You just listen to what your customers want, right? It's not necessary. There's obviously base functionality that we need to support, but I don't think it makes sense to us to be biased of one bridge over another. And so usually we listen to our community, we listen to our customers, and if there's certain routes or bridges or tokens that they want, and it makes sense, then we'll go ahead and add it. It's pretty straightforward for most of our community members. If there's something that they're looking for, they usually can pop into our Discord and ask that directly. And one of our mods are usually pretty quick on helping getting that support online pretty fast. We also have a platform product as well, which enables teams. If you go to platform.swing.xyz, we actually have a way for you to go and configure your bridges or your tokens, whatever you want. So if you only want to support within your application, 4 out of 10 bridges or 2 out of 10 bridges, your popular bridge, let's say it's across. they can totally go in there and just turn that on, and it's working within seconds. And so we don't necessarily take a biased approach of restricting which bridges we want to enable or which routes or tokens we want to enable. It's more something that we let our community dictate, and they tell us.
Yeah, I think in terms of how transactions are routed via tech stack, we're 100% unbiased, but we do offer this customizability that Vivek talked on the B2B side, right? Like if one of our B2B integration partners has a need for like giving preference to certain bridges, maybe they could have like a fee share model with them, or they could have like any reason to do it, right? So we do provide this customizability where they can be biased, but like as an aggregator, we're totally unbiased. And in terms of your question about like adding new bridges, I think as a product, we've reached a stage where we've probably covered our bases, right? In terms of enabling swaps across EVM chains. Like we have 13 bridges integrated so far. So we already offer our users substantial amount of options and liquidity sources to route their transactions. So in terms of like how do we decide now which bridge we want to add, we're in a position where we don't necessarily need to add a bridge, right? Just for the sake of it, unless it makes strategic sense for us and the bridge kind of expands our capabilities even further, or let's say it improves our routes substantially. So here we definitely give a lot of like importance to customer demand in terms of both like our B2B clients and our what our users are requesting for on the front end side. And yeah, like how can this impact our bottom line? This can definitely impact it, right? But in the that's in the short run, because we're seeing, let's say, projects working on enabling cross-chain swaps that are already monetizing it by being biased. But I think being neutral and strategic is probably going to help us in the long term. So yeah, we're pretty neutral.
Yeah, so we unbiased too. We compare not only bridges but also aggregators, and trying to show our users the best route in terms of gas fees, in terms of time, and also we trying to help our users to do research. We show how this bridge is decentralized, other smart contracts audits, how many of them they have, and yeah, so we trying to help our users to do their research.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm so very much aligned with listening to the community. And I think that does affect the bottom line when we're talking about business models. It's a great way to see success. So I'm happy to see that everyone is implementing that strategy pretty much across the board. So that was all the questions that I had today. Again, I guess as we sort of all mutually agreed on is that it is a little bit early in the aggregator space to discuss, when token and see what the future of aggregator fees or revenue models look like. But it's interesting to like start the discussion and see where protocol representatives' heads are at. So really, thank you all for joining. And any sort of like final thoughts before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, I think final thoughts would be like these are not excuses, right? In terms of why aggregators are not dominating the space. These are like things that we're actively working on solving, like in terms of how to make revenue, fees, or even the token part, right? But yeah, definitely, as all of us kind of increase our adoption and scale operations, we definitely believe there is value in aggregation, and over time, aggregators will dominate. And yeah, I had a nice time talking about this on this panel.
And trust will dominate on the aggregators that are dominating, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. We're just kidding, but yeah. We hope we are. We are like trying our best in the background to make our tech always win with you guys. So yeah, sorry, go ahead. Vivek or Vaya.
Yeah, I think just to add to that as well, I think the aggregator model is really just trying to solve the cross-chain user experience today, right? It's still fairly messy, swap, bridge, swap, stake, deposit. There's a lot of different things that can be done, but it's full of friction today. And so I think as aggregators learn to add value to users and streamline some of these kind of use cases, I think then business models may emerge that may make more sense than what we're seeing today. But certainly, it's still early. I think we have some really strong players in the industry, and certainly looking forward to kind of taking cross-chain to the next level and really making it seamless for all users in the ecosystem. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And again, I want to thank all of our audience. This was our final panel of our short but sweet Apen with Aggregator campaign. We actually have our grand finale tomorrow at around the same time, our community call on Discord with another representative from LiFi, Nithin, who, yeah, very dearly beloved member of across community. So yeah, we hope everyone can join that tomorrow. Again, join our Discord to see the time and the stage is around the same time as this community call. So thank you all to our guests as well. If you haven't already, please give Via, LiFi, and Swing a try. And choose your, pick your favorite aggregator. Right? They are really the future, and we are at a cross hoping to just continue building the best product that can win on every single one of them. So yeah, thank you guys so much and look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you.